Hey guys, I'm going to be going over one of my challenger games in this VOD review, and I want to show you how to do a VOD review because a question I get asked a lot is how do I VOD review? Are VOD reviews important or not? And this is going to be trying to be the answer to them, right? So, number one thing in a VOD review is if you're going to be VOD reviewing, hopefully you have recording software. If you don't, make sure that you have it set on your vision. And the reason why is because ultimately the objective of VOD review, and I'll be going over this, is going to be going over the two core concepts of the game. And that's going to be pattern recognition, first of all, right? So recognize what's happening in a game. And then the second thing is going to be knowing what's going to happen next and being able to influence it. So think about this is your decision, right? So knowing what's going on and knowing if your decision, knowing what the decision should be afterwards. And so what I want you to do is think about the game like this. From the moment that you pick a champion, let's say our starting point is this circle right here. From the moment they pick a champion, pick your runes, pick your summoners, all that stuff, you've already made a lot of decisions. Now, hopefully you should have logic behind those decisions. And if you can imagine a decision tree down to the end of a game, it goes like down all the way to the end, right? Uh, what you want to be able to do during a VOD review is be able to follow yourself down this track and understand what went wrong or what went right. And as opposed to looking at your mechanical mistakes or your mistakes in laning, I want to use this analogy afterwards and I'll use it afterwards. So sorry, but as opposed to doing that, what I want you to be able to do is follow this line that you've had in your head that you were thinking about in the game. So the first step to a good VOD review is going to be having a game plan going into a game, having a plan and being able to explain what you were thinking at any point. So that's what you should go for. Now I want you to think about this, right? Like imagine you're this guy, right? You're this guy, and unfortunately, you are blind, right? You're completely blind. You got like a walking stick, and you got a line right here that you got to follow. And there is this dude that you pay here, and he's your coach, and he has perfect vision. He's better vision than you, maybe not perfect, right? And every time you walk off this line as that blind individual, he's gonna come hit you in the back of the head with his long arm, right? Now that's what VOD reviews are. If you pay a coach to do them, and if the coach isn't great, I'll say probably what 99% of VOD reviews are these days. The coach will come hit you on the back of the head, say, "What are you doing in your lane? You're inting, bro. You're inting, bro. You're so bad. Blah 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 blah. You should be doing this. You should be doing that." And then you'll be like, "Yeah, you're right." And you'll walk on that line for two steps, and then as soon as he's gone, you're gonna walk off that line again because you're still blind. You still don't understand what's going on, and that's what you got to start doing in your games, as opposed to being blind at the start of the game. Have a narrow vision, a focus. What do you want to do in a game? What is important in this game? What matters to you? What is the patterns that you've recognized in this game that have happened before? And then afterwards, in that VOD review, you'll go back and look on if you were accurate in your observation and if you were obviously right about the decisions that you made afterwards. So you need to be the one taking the initiative if you want to be VOD reviewing. You cannot be AFK farming in a lane or whatever and then be saying, well, what could I do better here? Should I group or should I split or what should I do, boss? Like, should I hit the tower here? Is the enemy jungler here? Like, I can't answer those questions for you because it's game specific, right? Like, and those are really shitty questions. So take the initiative. I'm going to start with this VOD review, and I'm going to just talk through this game as an example. And this is what you should be able to do. So this game, right, I'm Ezreal. I had to blind pick Ezreal. It starts in draft, right? If you're really serious about VOD reviewing, screenshot your draft and also have recording software pulled up if you're going to be looking at these sort of games, right? And I think Ezreal struggles a lot into the enemy comp for sure. Like Ezreal into Skarner is kind of sad. Into Vayne, it's kind of sad. Into Senna, Seraphine, it's very, very sad. And in general, our comp doesn't really scale side by side to theirs, right? Like if they're able to get to their break points, then it's going to be a really rough game for us. So we want to win in the early game. Now that's a great starting point. Winning in the early game, right? How do I do that as Ezreal versus Seraphine, Senna bot lane? It's really hard, right? Because they should get prio. But one thing that I did here is obviously the intention, the logic here was I looked for early trades before the lane began, right? And then Seraphine makes the mistake of showing here on the mid wave, which means, okay, I'm able to play intercept on her, and I'm going to know exactly when she gets back to lane, and I'm going to be able to check on Senna. So if Senna's coming back to lane, she's going to be 50% HP, and if Seraphine's coming back through lane, it's going to be through Tribrush, which already gives us a huge advantage because I run immediately bot lane and place a ward into this brush. And I place a ward into this brush because Poppy can E-charge into this bush if they try to get prio into us. And Ezreal Poppy cannot get prio bot lane, right? by hitting the wave versus Seraphine Senna, because Seraphine Senna will just hit the wave back and do more damage. So we're gonna have to get prio through trading into their HP and setting up lethals on them. And at the same time, I want to set up a slow push to look for possibly a dive, because my jungler's doing a 3 camp. It's Rek'Sai Poppy. We could probably pull off a dive, right? So with all that being said, notice where I'm playing and how I'm playing up here, even giving up CS to try to potentially block off their XP, because I recognize, hey, we got to win this game early. And sure, early CS matter quite a bit, but it would be way more impactful for me to land a Q and for them to miss XP than for me to get a last hit, right? So as you can see, I'm CSing here, making sure I'm playing up, right? And when the prio is secured, I'm not spam hitting the wave, because if I spam hit the wave, we won't get the dive opportunity. Now that being said, CoreJJ didn't get XP, but he's going to take 2 right here. And this is going to be exactly what I wanted. I want them to be in this little death chamber here, where if they need to walk up for XP, they need to be in this zone. And if they walk up for XP in this zone, Poppy's going to get the E charge on them, right? So it's great. And then I'm watching Seraphine looking at small things like her passive indicators. So she has a double cast coming up. But so if she casts a Q here, she's going to have double cast E. If she casts E, she's going to have double cast Q. But she's going to be on cooldown for one of her abilities and only be able to double cast one of them, right? So right here, CoreJJ walks forward on the same timer that minions are dying, right? And the wave is meeting. And Seraphine casts E here. So that means Seraphine is on cooldown for 8 seconds. And you might say, cool, Seraphine's on cooldown for 8 seconds. But I immediately recognize that this is our timer to go in, and they need to respect us right here. And I walk straight forward into them. Poppy walks straight forward into them, and we use all of our damage on the Seraphine, and we're able to kill the Seraphine. Obviously, it's her mistake, but it's always about intention, right? So we're thinking, and Seraphine is probably just not thinking, if you want me to be blunt. But this is how laning phase, these are the mistakes and what you should be doing in a VOD review. You should not be looking at, hey, I should have killed this minion or done this, or I should have reset on this timer, because all those individual mistakes don't build into something unless you're thinking, unless you have intention, and unless you're going into a game with the intention to be, active, be conscious, and take initiative. For example, this really small thing. I have 2 biscuits here on Ezreal, right? So I pop 1 biscuit to get my mana for W, and again, look at my mana bar. It looks like I had 0 mana when they're pushing in, so they're like trying to push in the wave. I held my biscuits. They see 0 mana. They're like, oh, Ezreal has 0 mana. We could shove this in easy, right? But I pop my biscuit and I cast W, and because W refunds the ability cast of whatever hits, it refunded my entire E mana bar, and I popped 2 biscuits at the same time, and it guarantees the E onto Senna. So this is all super, super good. And then obviously, like right here, I'm using all of my abilities, and then I'm holding my Q because I know that Seraphine has to either choose to walk straight out, or if she decides to try to kite me and get autos in on me and trade back, she's going to have to pin herself against terrain here. I'm going to be able to get a really easy Q on her. So I go for this last auto, and then I Q her, and I don't have to like chance the Q on it being in a bad situation. And that's something I'll talk about in a little bit as well, right? In terms of what I'm thinking of this game at this point, it's like, okay, slow push dive didn't work, but I'm able to like drain their resources. Now on this bounce back, I'm going to have TP. Seraphine doesn't have TP. So I want to get a decent amount of gold so that I'm able to push advantages and do a lot of damage. So like right now, I'm looking at my gold. Like I want to be able to get Sheen tier maybe, but like at the same time, like is Sheen tier worth getting? Maybe not. Maybe long swords are better. So like I have Sheen tier, and I'm like, okay, I'll just send Sheen tier here probably, right? So I have very well intentioned uses of my TP, right? The bounce back, buy really, really strong items that are going to make me significantly stronger at this point, right? And then I'm going to be playing forward here, right? The wave comes in here. Minions are low. Seraphine doesn't have double cast. Seraphine has like only her W up, no double cast available. So she has 2 abilities up right now, right? She's not going to be able to double cast her W unless she casts her Q and her E beforehand, which she probably won't, right? Because she doesn't have the mana bar for it. So I'm just going to E forward onto her, walk upwards so that Senna probably thinks and probably doesn't know that I'm here, because I know they have no vision. They never walked up here to place vision, and we cleared out the only vision they had. So Senna doesn't know, and they really want to desperately crash the wave, so they're going to be playing up into me, and I walk up instead. And even like a tiny thing like dodging Senna W is logical and well intentioned. So all that being said, I'm going to go over one last play, and then I'll talk over just what you should be doing. But I want you guys to think about this, right? Take the initiative. Don't go into a game and not have a plan, because having a plan works out so much better than, being mechanically good, right? And you don't get mechanically good until you make a plan. So at this point, right, I play out laning phase just pretty whatever, right? Like I'm perma trading into them to keep Senna bot lane so that Poppy can go roam and impact the map because obviously Poppy roaming is so much better than having her stay in lane. And then I take this reset timer after I push in this one last wave because I think I needed the item, right? Like I think I wanted an item right here, so I just pushed in, took one plate, and then reset. And then I know that Nico has TP here, and she's resetting as well. So what I called for is, after this wave, I want to be able to go mid and centralize myself because Nico has TP, and I want to contest Void Grubs. So as you can see, I'm spam pinging the Void Grubs. I'm moving up here, and then Nico's going to be going through bot lane, right? So this is like really, really cool stuff. Really, really great. Really, really great, amazing idea. Great decision that I made. But it ends up being slightly bad because this fight happens top lane and Nico TPs, and now all of a sudden we lose 4 plates or 3 plates bot lane and we lose 2 waves, right? And my rotation ends up being like somewhat bad because our Vladimir doesn't even TP to bot, he TPs to top lane. So like it's actually somewhat bad. And that's why it's important to go back in a VOD and realize like, hey, I could VOD review that and I could be if I was a little bit more insecure in whether or not my call was right. I know my call was right, and I think Nico fucked up. I think anybody understands that if it's explained to them. But I could go back and watch it. Let's say if I wasn't sure, and I could go back and look. Hey, what was the mistake here? Was the mistake my movement mid, or was the mistake Nico's TP there? Right, and that's how you got to be really logical when you do these VOD reviews, and that's why it might help to have a higher ranked player because you got to be logical. Sometimes your teammates are just going to int you. You do not have the expectation that you are better than your teammates or your teammates are better than you. You are all playing this game, and you're just recognizing the patterns that are taking place. And the best way I could put it is using this last analogy, which is imagine you're going to the gym, right? So imagine you're going to the gym. By the way, like even stuff like this, like I start my recall here. I know they have vision, and their ward dies, and then I go into fog because they don't know that I finished my recall or not, and because they don't know that I've finished my recall or not, and they don't see me on the map right now, I'm able to get onto Seraphine. Like it's a vision play, right? Like it's a really good vision play. So really cool stuff right there. But my point that I was making is if you go to the gym and you try to get stronger, there are going to be people that go to the gym and cheat and take steroids. There's going to be people that go to the gym and don't do anything. They eat pizza on Fridays. They take Instagram selfies. They ego lift. They don't lift at all. They just go for random reasons, right? There's people that go and they just follow the regimen that their friends do. Like everybody has their own reasons for going to the gym. What you got to focus on is if you go to the gym or you start doing your VOD review and your expectation is I'm going to be able to lift as much weight as I need to be strong, then you're essentially going into the gym or you need to execute everything properly. Then you're going to be going into the gym and being like, I can lift this 500-pound barbell, right? But you can't, right? You cannot lift that 500-pound barbell. And if you if you try to, it won't even make you stronger. And that's the curious thing about it, right? So even if you were to lift that barbell, it wouldn't make you stronger. Even if you did it and tried your hardest every single day you tried to move this barbell, you still would not get any stronger, right? So you got to put yourself under weight that you recognize you can move. And when you're VOD reviewing, you got to only talk about stuff that you can actually make changes towards. You cannot be talking about stuff that, you cannot directly change. And that's going to come into mechanics, right? So your mechanics are going to be super important to go over. And I'll go over like a quick example of something that maybe you should not be going over, but I can go over because I have some sort of logic, right? And because I'm following this situation, like this logic, I'm going to be able to update what I should do in my brain. And next time I'm in a situation like this, I'll be a little bit more self aware, a little bit more conscious, right? And I want to equate it to this. Uh, Mechanics are really easy to get good at. They're probably the easiest thing in League to get good at because all it takes is time. But putting yourself in a right situation to produce the mechanics is going to be important. For example, if you play CSGO at all, you know that people had custom maps where they could like peek the catwalk on Dust 2 or like had very popular peak locations. So like if you're able to stay in that corner the entire game, then you're going to be able to hit every shot if you've practiced that corner like 500 times and the enemy has not practiced it a single time, right? Like it's just easy to do. But the question is, how do you make it so that you're in that corner in League? And the way that you do that is by making right decisions. So you put yourself in the situation to make the right decisions so that you can peek that corner and execute it well because you've done it 500 times and the enemy hasn't done it a single time. So replicate it, put yourself in these situations, and then you can start talking about your mechanics and what you should be doing better. There should be logic and there should be a reasonable expectation of performance before you start putting yourself under the scrutiny that like Chovy is, right? Because you don't need to beat Chovy. I don't need to beat Chovy this game. I just need to beat Slutty Tadpole on Senna, right? And then the next game I play, maybe I'm against Chovy, maybe I'm against whoever, right? That's when I need to play against Chovy and beat Chovy. But for now, I just need to beat Slutty Tadpole, and that's all I should be concerned about. But with that being said, so situations like this, right? So, and this is a pattern that I can recognize. So Kled's about to go into an iframe like invulnerability by demounting, and I shoot a very valuable ability at him, which is my Q. And that could be Vexar, that could be Lee Sin Q, it could be any ability that's important to land, even like a point and click ability. He demounts, and because he demounts, my Q misses. And because my Q misses, I kind of get desynced for the rest of this fight because it's just harder to execute when you miss Q on Ezreal. I think everybody knows that, right? And like a really small thing here is like I'm pathing into the bush to try to get vision of the Kled because I don't know my damage numbers exactly. So I path into the bush as opposed to pathing this way. And if I path this way, I would have probably won this fight and killed them all. But because I didn't, I end up dying here. So how am I able to go over this and review it and it be actually impactful for me? Well, you start with the things where logic maintains, right? So I decided to take this fight. We didn't have to, but I said, fuck it, we're 10k gold up. Why not fight and limit test? So I E forward, then make micro movements so that I'm able to dodge out on the Seraphine E, and I'm also not standing in a line with Senna, so everything checks out there. And then as soon as I get hit by Kled Q, I understand that's my timer, I need to flash away, right? And then this is the first really major mistake here. I shoot my Q into Kled when he's demounted, and that's something that I can improve on. Next time somebody has Zanya's or whatever, I can be cognizant of that being available, and next time I'm going to be saving my Q for a guaranteed hit instead. Especially if you have like something like Conquer or you need to maintain passive stacks, it's like really important that you hit that Q, right? So with all that being said, I'm not going to be going into this fight and saying, hey, I should have never taken this because I opted into it. It was my decision. I know it's not the right decision to do because like, you know, if this is a casual game, right? Why would I do this? I could just go through mid and end the game. But you know, you never get to experience things until you try different things. So I said, I want to try something. I want to limit test. This is an example of a good limit test because I mean, even if I lost this game, I would not have been angry at myself for doing this because, you know, I have a lot to learn when I put myself in a situation I've never been in before. And I have to execute things that I haven't had to execute before. I'm putting myself into like a new corner on Dust 2, right? So I can't be mad at myself if I fuck it up. I can't be mad at myself if I've earned myself the ability to try it, right? Because I'm fed. We're 10k gold up. Why not limit test? And this is something I want you guys to work on in general. Before you reach out to a coach, you need to really understand what taking the initiative means. So take the initiative for yourself. Give yourself a fair shot because you need to be able to influence your games directly before you're asking for help. A good example is like I was watching Bwipo earlier, and like people were asking him. By the way, let me backtrack a little bit. The point that I'm making with this is VOD viewing is not very important for your average player. And for your average player, it's actually a lot better just to focus on like watching and being active in their own games. And like whenever you're watching somebody play, also being active in their games so you can pick up on those patterns. Because VOD viewing gives you a bad habit of zooming out and seeing all of this stuff and being really hindsighty and cruel to yourself and mechanical mistakes, right? Like you could see it with every single coach. Like, I played this so shit or blah, blah, blah. Like, bro, nobody cares. Again, put yourself under weight you can lift. So what I want you to do is instead of VOD viewing yourself in a lot of situations, it's more effective to just watch a pro player play or watch your friends play and try to predict what happens next. And just try that because I think it'll help you guys so much if you're just a more active listener. Like imagine you're in a classroom, you could either sit and just observe the teacher teaching you, or you could be an active participant in the class. And it's the same thing with League. You could sit and just like chill and like maybe your team wins, maybe it doesn't, or you could try to like directly do what you need to do in a game. And there's going to be some games where you just need to shut up and do nothing, and there's going to be some games where you're going to be the main character, right? But like it's just all about being active, being willing to play those roles. So what I'm trying to say is when that person in Bwipo's chat asked him, why are you W maxing? Why are you Q maxing instead of W max? I thought W max was good on Vlad. Why no Darksteel? Why no this? Why no that? Right? These people didn't take the steps to actually think about the game. Right? They're just sitting there noticing something, and instead of connecting the dots, drawing that pattern, they're just they're just saying why. I want you to try to, especially if you're trying to getting better. If you're in NACL or watching a pro player do something, try to get the logic behind it. It's so much more important to take the initiative yourself and try to understand something because you're building up those neural pathways on why something makes sense to you rather than just trusting blindly what somebody says when it changes by game basis, right? So it's not even worth it to answer those questions in my opinion. And you got to put effort if you're like trying to get better, you got to put more effort than that into asking a question or getting a VOD review than just saying, what should I be doing? Why should I be doing it? Like stuff like that. Take the initiative, try to come up with ways for you to win the game and be your own advocate if that makes sense because you won't get better by just moving at the same pace as the people around you. Hard stuck players are not hard stuck and not getting better. Hard stuck players are hard stuck because they're getting better at the pace of the players around them, right? So uh, that's only a phenomenon that's really described by people who are not being taking the initiative for themselves, right? So that's my one request. If you guys are VOD reviewing, this is a perfect example. Be able to follow yourselves throughout the game, thinking about what you're doing and have an explanation for everything you're doing, and be able to review when you made mistakes, like how I did in that situation where I missed the Q onto the Kled, and when I was playing a little bit more upfront, maybe I should say I should dodge a Kled Q or something like that. Uh, but be able to review yourself and be reasonable and logical, right? Like you're not playing with Chovy, you're not playing with Dopa. You don't need to be LS's new protege. You don't need to be like the best prodigy player. You don't need to be rank one. First thing you got to focus on is winning your next game of solo queue, or at least trying your best and being the best version of yourself that you can be at the moment. And that's what you should really focus on when you're doing these VOD reviews. Do not focus on these tiny micro mistakes that you'll honestly never get better at because I've tried that as well, and it never gets better until you're able to frame it in your mind in the context of the bigger situation. So, hope it's helpful. Let me know if you guys have any questions. But, like, really, you guys, when you're VOD reviewing your games, do not be too harsh on yourselves and do not VOD review every game. Pick out one or two VODs that really confuse you or interest you and try to figure it out yourself. Why did I lose? Why did I win? What happened here? Right? And you'll become an infinitely better player after that. So, best of luck, guys, and take care.